Oof. Forgot how to do this casting thing. How long has it been? Ugh. Apparently there's some pretty good TVZs, but we're into a hopefully pretty good ZVP. In the top right, there's the red Zerg. It is soO. In the bottom left is the blue Protoss. It is Deer. Quick check on the results. We do have tier. Oh my good lord. We do have TY topping the group. And on top of Deer. So that's where my brain was going, I suppose. soO did lose to Bunny and Deer did lose to Scarlet. So with this match, they're both in like a swimming pool and they're trying to push the other one down. It's actually getting really scary and the lifeguard's yelling at them, but one has to live and the other one has to die. Because not only will this push one person down to an 0-2 result in their group, but it also give the advantage in head-to-head between whoever wins here. So perhaps raising the stakes a little more than they actually are raised, to be honest, as it's still only the second match in this group. It's been a wild ride for Group D because all of us had to wait a ton of time. Thanks, Innovation Cyril. Good thing you were at a super important match. I believe now Wardy is just casually taking a 30-minute break, eating breakfast or whatever. I guess he's European, so he's getting dinner. Whatever you Europeans do. And, yeah, gotta kind of also readjust myself to casting some ZVP. And we already do have something being decided. A Twilight Council first for our boy Deer, who was on Team Newbie, by the way. Same team as Time and Scarlet. I saw that Scarlet was wearing some Newbie sweatpants. Bruh. Sweatpants are great now. I love sweatpants. I looked on the ESL store, though, and they didn't actually have the sweatpants available, nor did they have the team hoodie available anymore. After having a fire sale. Like only a couple days ago. Womp womp. Well, you know, the last time we saw a lot of ZVP, we were seeing a lot of robo openers, more so than you would ever expect before this tournament, it felt like, compared to all the Stargate openers we've had for so long. We are going back to still a very basic common opener. You know, it had its whole phase 2 years ago, and then it kind of dropped out in exchange for High Templars, and then it's come back as Dark Shrine for your Archons and the occasional cheeky win because they weren't expecting a Dark Shrine at all. So that's what Deer's doing, but soO will have full intel here as this Overlord from the south side. Something that Deer probably wasn't expecting comes in and gets the very easy scout. So Stalker over here would have stopped this one, but not much you can do about this. And the full scout is happening, so it's probably not worth it to even try with the DTs, just immediately morph them into Archons at this point. Lair's on the way at totally normal timing. The scouts there for the Overlord, its timing doesn't really get you a faster Overseer so you can track any potential DT movements, but that's where Spore Crawlers come into play, right? And a Spore Crawler is on the way. I think a safe amount would be 2. Oh, okay, he already has one done. There you go. Because he didn't know what was going down, so already a safety Spore Crawler. It's unlikely they head to the main base first, but if they do and you don't have a Spore Crawler, you are, you know, maybe in trouble. But in this case, Deer did exactly what I was going to guess he was going to do, and he goes for the Archons immediately. He doesn't even play around in the middle of the map. Very, very safe. But here's something I didn't expect. Didn't call. He's going for that second Warp Prism. I think we've been seeing a lot more of this lately as well. Some of these Protoss players really trying to play fancy. And those will be Archons as well, usually. But first, it's going to try the DTs, and those are headed right towards the main base. There's no Spore Crawler. Overseers being made at the natural. Lings are responding, but it's actually over here where the Archons are. So now they're responding over here, but now he also knows there's 2 Warp Prisms. So no matter what he chooses, especially if he's only dealing with Lings here, so's going to be in a bit of trouble. He does have a Roach Warren, and his Overseer is in the main. Really nice split of units. Very nicely done. Oh my god, actually, Deer totally messing up. You're supposed to save those 4 DTs and then have 4 Archons dropping from 2 Warp Prisms. He loses every single DT in that main base, and now has a, not useless Warp Prism, of course, but that was a big investment that was supposed to go a lot better. There's also a situation where if they were Archons from the get-go, the Lings don't look useful. They actually just die a painful, horrible death. Now, the Lings did their job. The Roaches come out and do theirs. Queens have barely been living through all of this, I suppose, as well. An Overlord goes down. Creep Tumors go down. Always love when the Observer gets paired up with this, but those losses in the main base are kind of harsh. And then over here, third Nexus is going to be further delayed. I believe that was like 2 probes that went over there. One rallied, the other one building the Nexus, something along those lines. Maybe it was a unit. Hold on. Maybe it was the Adept, actually. Was it the Adept and a probe? Not enough to safeguard a third Nexus, and there's so many Lings that soO made. I was going to say at the cost of his drones, but as he just continues to make more Roaches, he is looking to severely punish any third Nexus on the way over. There won't be shield batteries. He knows there's not a ton of units. Charge not going to be done. Another cancel right off the bat. Or, well, I guess last time it was just a delay, but a cancel right off the bat. 100 minerals down. And, of course, he could also be trying to take advantage of the lack of Archons back at home. You know, 2 more morphing in here, 2 more still alive over there. But it looks like soO wasn't going to go for any aggressive push, despite Roach Speed kind of timing up with those Roaches. He was just taking these Archons very, very seriously. So tons of Roaches to the bottom side, tons of Roaches to the top side. It did keep his drone count kind of low, but the delay and then cancel on the third Nexus helps any economic advantage or slights that soO could have taken because of all of this. And soO is just in a really good position. He's dealt with everything almost perfectly. He gets another cancel here. That one was a little bit more harsh too, because it was like 30-40% done. soO is controlling this game. Deer might still be able to get to a decent army. Charge is done. +1 is done. soO's army is very basic here until he gets that Hydra count up. But soO's doing a really great job. +1 is finally on the way alongside those Hydras. 4th base should be also coming down eventually for soO. Keeping tabs on that army, also dealing with the Warp Prisms. They went all the way back home, and now they're going to try and do something again on out on the map. I think the best thing they've done so far is probably delay the creep spread over here. So when there is a 4th base, it's not going to be super well protected. Not going to have the Queens and the Hydras with their nice little speed boost, since the Hydras are not being upgraded. They don't have range, they don't have speed, and they don't yet have that +1. Gonna go for speed first. No, changes his mind and goes for range first. The old saying is kind of, if you want to go defensive, it's range. If you want to go attack, it's speed. Then it didn't matter for a while because it was the same upgrade, but now we're back kind of to that old saying. It's not always 100% what goes down, but it does typically go down that way. So soO more mindful of having the range to deal with the Warp Prism than slithering a little bit faster on what is now creep spread coming back up. And he doesn't take the 4th I would have expected. He takes the one down to the south. Either that's just the way he likes to expand on this map, or it was the pressure of the Archons with his creep tumors. At 63 drones, not like soO has a baller economy, even if his 4th was up and running. It's so much more about him maxing out on this army first. So his Deer, he set up his army, he got to a good composition, wants to push that 150 supply. As he pushes, he realizes, okay, that's actually going to work. No, not going to go so well. Decides to pull back. Now slaps down the Templar Archive, but, I mean, once again, it feels like Deer is trying XYZ, drop, hidden tech, push, something along those lines, double Warp Prism shenanigans, and nothing's really working. soO has stopped him at every single angle. And the one thing that we can say is that, well, if Protoss maybe fail in that regard, if they can at least get to that, you know, 150-ish army with a decent amount of Immortals and eventually Storms, then maybe it doesn't actually matter so much. And that's kind of what's happening here. Deer is controlling the middle of the map, not actually pushing, though. These Warp Prisms are never actually part of the main fight. And he is always eager, more than willing to pull back. So he will eventually get to that Supreme army, at least until a Greater Spire pops out, which is going to take a very long time because soO is not in an eager state to go there at all. He's adding on that last Hydralisk upgrade, +2 missiles, so he's, you know, not very good upgrades. It's going to be 1 to +3 attack for direct fights here. He's really going to need to depend on those lurkers to bring him back, but I'm a little worried for that. As soO has, you know, deflected everything, single aggression that Deer's tried to put on. Oh, actually, hold on here. soO is now really digging deep into the Protoss natural, but this could backfire. His army is just not that good compared to what Deer has, but Storm is not quite done. The High Templars a little bit on the front line, now being pulled back. One of them does go down, but 3 of them are about to have Storm. There we go. On top of that, however, there's just so many Roaches, so many Force Fields, so many chunky Archons that did not really go super, super well. And we see that Remax is better for soO, for the Zerg player, as it should be, but it's on Roaches. And the Immortal count was not halted. We barely even took out the Sentry count. Still a couple there with a lot of energy. And 2 High Templars still lived as well. This seems like a perfect opportunity for Deer. He was biding his time. He was trying to set soO off here and there a little bit. And while soO did respond kind of appropriately, maybe he over-responded. Maybe he should have gotten that 4th base faster. He should have been up to 65 drones faster. He should have gotten more aggression on the map faster and been to lurkers to hold this push. Instead, he's got to depend on a really sick surround, and he does come in from multiple angles, but again, with mostly Roaches, so Force Fields come down on the right side. Top side is going to go well for the Archons here. Double Warp Prism, so very unlikely he'll be running out of micro or warp-in potential. With a surround, and the Hydra's now impacting the match as well. Nah, the Immortals are still alive. Even though most of their shields have been popped, the charge that Warp-in is going to do it, and GG is called. Deer takes game number 1, despite losing the DTs, despite the Archons not doing a ton. I'm talking, you know, they didn't actually get many Lings. They basically got a couple Creep Tumors, but they kept the pressure on, I suppose, and Deer's delayed 3rd Nexus. Through all of that, Deer still ended up getting to that really, really nice Protoss army, and soO started to really fall behind. Just in head-to-head army types. Upgrades behind, no Lurker Den, and not really a composition that surprises, is it? You know, there's no drops included with that. There's no Banelings that occasionally get those perfect hits on the Sentries and the High Templar. Not exactly the most, like, riveting game possible, but so ZVP. It's not comparable to that TVT I had an hour ago. I think soO is definitely going to change up. His EVP is not, it's not bad, but it felt like a very basic game. One that I think, unless the Zerg player takes like really extreme advantages in terms of economy and positioning on the map, will go in favor of that Protoss type of army. But I don't know what he'll plan on changing it up. Someone throws out Nidus Room in the chat. Well, that is the name of IEM. Port Alexander. Anything map-wise? I don't know. I always prefer Ling Banling Hydra. It's a more fun matchup to watch. And it does provide for some of those extreme engagements where, like, you're not really supposed to win against the Protoss, who has done the thing. They've done the whole, like, okay, I'm surviving, and they're rewarded with the better fight. Sometimes a Zerg player with Banelings can actually change that tide of battle. But with Roach Hydra, it's like, it's kind of a numbers thing. How many ESL streams are there? There's 3 StarCraft streams. Deer's actually never lost a series to soO. That is an interesting stat, but I'm actually not that surprised. Of soO's matchups... Damn it. Ugh. Ignore that ugliness. Of soO's matchups, well, none of them are really bad. Consistency is this guy's game. I'm probably the least impressed with his EVP. And for a lot of the Korean Protoss, I'm most impressed by their PvP, so... Yeah, okay. I won't gasp at that, but that is some pretty useful information. So in the top left, apparently fighting against some heavy odds, it is the red Zerg soO. In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, it is Deer. You know, Smash Cyril. That's a bit of a strong word for that series, isn't it? Okay, y'all people, because there's more than one of you, but seriously, y'all people who are like, they didn't update the score within 15 seconds of the opening game. I have to remind them that the game needs to be updated on the score. Hold on. Calm your tits, guys. Seriously. This ain't Mapu. This ain't Indy on the observer controls. I got things to do. ESL is using these, what are these things called? The 360 cameras. And turn it into a bit of a GIF. They're maybe using them a little too often. By the way, when I say I'm the least impressed with soO's PvP, that isn't a remark on how often he loses it, or that it's bad. It's just like the basicness of the matchup. The slow Roach Hydra game, not particularly fond of the drops or the lurkers or anything, you know, Baneling oriented. Like that type of ZVP, it just doesn't really like, it doesn't really get me all excited and bothered, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what more I think of soO. But when soO goes even Roaches, for instance, in TVZ, which he didn't do today, but he has definitely done before, even if he does that and Roaches can be kind of boring, I think it's more exciting when soO goes Roaches versus Terran than, say, Roaches versus Protoss. But no, that's partially, you know, the matchup and partially soO and whatever. It was just an idle comment on my personal, I guess, excitement levels. I'm really glad that Banelings have made it back into CDP, though. Let's just take a second and really appreciate that it's an option that Zergs have. Same with Ravagers. Ravagers are probably... Let's see here. What are the additions to Legacy of the Void, unit-wise? Liberator. Cyclone. Liberator was Legacy of the Void, right? Man, I'm tripping through time. Ravager. What did Protoss get? Adept. Ugh. Now, the Ravager was the best. Mothership Core was a Legacy of the Void unit? Man, now I'm we've had Legacy of the Void for so long. It feels like the previous two expansions weren't years, but they were. Nice snipe there. Once again, Dark Shrine, Archon drop, and no second War Prism. Gets the kill on the Overlord, but this one once again being a little tricky. You didn't actually go in and scout that, but that's... might still be expecting it. He does have a Roach Warren on the way, and you don't really want to play around with Archons with just Lings. It's possible, but you also probably want some extra Queens to try and target down the War Prism, and it's definitely a little bit riskier. Disruptors were fun, but they still haven't really... They weren't really a fix for any problem. They just were fun, explosive units. The Ravager was a direct fix. It also made Roach swells a little more interesting. No more stupid force field blocking the main ramp shenanigans. Gun to my head, pick the best addition to Legacy of the Void. I'm gonna go ahead and say the Ravager. Swarm hosts were definitely Heart of the Swarm. That much I remember. For surezies. Yeah, early PvP Disruptor vs. Disruptor was really fun, but didn't last. Adepts are somewhat useful. The general, I mean, we're talking broader scope here of the best changes to Legacy of the Void that Legacy of the Void brought to StarCraft, since we're just waiting for them to unpause and continue with the Archon drop. Protoss being redesigned was the best thing to come out of it, for sure. As angry as we all still get, Protoss included, because of PvP at some of the sillier things, you know? Force Field still causing some problems sometimes. Splash and Death Ball still looking a little broken. You know, when you're on your own game and you just are like, oh, stupid Protoss. Let's be fair and say that Protoss Legacy of the Void is like so much more interesting.
Game resumed.
There are the DTs morphing in the middle of the map, but soO didn't find them, so it's all good. It's all fine. Very fast third Nexus, so Deer went for the... Well, he went for the second Warp Prism, first of all, last game, so he was more dedicated to this attack than this time. But he also added on the Robo... was second Robo? Well, he had on Immortals before he took that third base. So, this time, just going right into the third, then adding on the Forge, Immortals later. Just the one Archon drop, well, 2 Archons, 1 drop, to keep tabs on his opponent. And again, this is something that soO maybe could have dealt with purely with Lings, but this is why it's a little dangerous to do that. Even with 2 Queens focus firing the Warp Prism, or trying to anyways. You can see how effective this can be in the hands of the pros. soO is going for, again, like a ton of units, but I thought maybe he'd go for an all-in last game. A dedicated attack. He didn't. He just had enough Lings to both take down the third Nexus, as well as defend against double Warp Prism. In this case, the third Nexus is a little bit more protected just sheerly by having more health and having pylons, so the full surround can't happen. And there's no second Warp Prism to make more roaches for, so... The Lings are still going to try, but the recall happens on the Warp Prism. There are a couple of units that can help out, too. And soO is not going to go all in with this. Oh, no! Woo! Okay, he's good. He's not going to go all in with this at all. Going to add more drones and a Spire. So let's slap down. That's the most important thing of this game. Does Deer realize it's a Spire or not? He's, you know, one of the rare opportunities that you can find a Protoss not going for a Stargate. So if he's really caught off guard by the Spire, he's really caught off guard by the Spire. And it's such a fast Spire, too, that we won't have that follow-up attack that catches the Spire as it's making the mutas, and then they maybe get the warp in of Stalkers. We saw Neeb have to deal with that yesterday, actually, in his PvZ. No, the Spire is going to be done. Mutas will be out, and Deer is going to have to find some way to continue holding on. Well, it's not going to be a ton of mutas. They could start snowballing. They could really control the game alongside some of these Ling run-bys and Roach run-bys. These Lings aren't getting through that Zealot. Immortal's even going to stay back there. He's got to be really careful as he lets the Immortals out, not to leave his door open. Templar Archives is on the way. We do have a bunch of cannons, so was there Hallucinated Phoenix, something like that? Or maybe he just... Wow. There is nothing telling him directly that there's a Spire, but one part knowing how soO plays, and then 2 parts just maybe figuring out the units that he's seen. There's just not a lot of Roaches. That is still pretty sick to me. So these mutas are actually going to fail. The attack I was talking about that can sometimes catch the mutas at a lower number and barely survive is happening, but it's actually going to not even be close to dying. soO is not going to find what he needed from these mutas. And while it doesn't seem like a huge commitment, keep in mind, Spire plus 6 mutas, that is a lot of minerals and gas. And once again, with that situation where Roaches and Ravagers, or Ravagers break Force Field, is still a very weak composition against Archon Immortal Sentry. Upgrade also in favor for Deer once again. It doesn't split from that Corrosive Bile, but maybe it doesn't matter. Oh, the Warp Rings for the Stalkers didn't happen, so the Warp Prism actually gets taken out. A little too far behind from those Archons. Mutas are at least a little successful, but DT's being warped in. Despite there being an Overseer, Deer just didn't care. They still added so much damage, and this was... God, he made this look easy. Ugh. Ugh. Ugly, ugly ZVP here for soO. Does pull the drones into this to make it look even, but it's not. If there was a War Prism, it would look comedic. GG. Deer slaps down soO. 2-0, easy peasy second game. Perfect read on the situation. And as I brought up in the very first game, it does make soO fans worry. It should anyways. He's now last in the group, but he has the... So he's last in the group right now as far as series results go. Obviously that can change. They can drastically change even. But let's say that him and Deer don't have the best performances the next couple of matches. Him taking a loss to Deer, despite having what was originally a better map differential. Actually, which one comes first? Hold on. Tiebreaker, tiebreaker, tiebreaker. There we go. Overall map difference. Overall number of maps won. Points and maps between the side participants. Maps difference. Well, it does still strongly depend on how their maps go, I guess, from here on out, but if it would come down to the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker for the tiebreaker for the tiebreaker. soO's a little farther down. soO has to face TY next, which should be a really sick TVZ. Deer has to face Bunny next.